What is going on, everybody? Mike here from Gaining the Edge Fantasy, and Week 14 is in the books for the NFL season. We are discussing waiver wire, recaps, taking questions as we go. I don't even know where to start. I haven't done a live stream in a while, especially a solo one. But the goal here is to pretty much go through all, 12 games we've had, discuss some of the fallout, and we'll hit waiver wire on the way because the way I do this, and I kind of wanted to give a glimpse as to how I go game by game, kind of just get my notes. This will be a quicker way for you to get the information versus you having to wait for me to edit it and all that, and maybe not even get a video out about this stuff. So I wanted to just go game by game and discuss a little bit about what exactly I'm seeing in the stats and players you can add. And this is going to be more for the deeper leagues because the players we're going to be talking about aren't going to be the ones that people are like always discussing. I feel like you're going to hear people talk about grab Dobbins off the waiver wire as if that should be an option. So we'll discuss how he was utilized and stuff like that. That's another thing. I want to get into utilization and players that stood out this week in terms of playing time potential, role increases or decreases, players that might have fooled us. If you saw the thumbnail, you'll see that I bought into Swift and got burned a little bit there. I really thought he was back. So we'll talk about that and much more. So let's just dive right into Thursday night's game. And we don't have to worry about the Raiders too much. That's another thing. I'm not going to sit here and touch on every single team that I don't feel like requires a discussion about them. If you feel differently or if you want to hear about them, ask and I'll get to them again because this is a live recording. But you're going to see me look away as I look into the stats and just looking at the Rams. Obviously, Baker Mayfield is a quarterback now, so it makes you wonder how the receivers are going to be utilized. And I guess Van Jefferson was on the field as much as anybody, second most utilized receiver in terms of snap rate, 96.7% last week, but compared to 100% for Ben. I just looked up how to say his name. I'm going to mess it up. I think it was Skowronek or something. Skowronek. Oh my goodness, I just looked it up again. I always mess up his name, but we'll call him Ben. First name basis here. Ben is he was the one that caught my attention because not only was he utilized 100% of the time, but you're seeing him line up outside more. The slot usage has actually gone down for Ben here over the last 2 weeks, and you've actually seen Tutu Atwell step up in that role of more of a slot guy. And Atwell is the one who actually had a solid game too. What was it? I'm looking up his stats right now. He actually had the 9 targets, 5 receptions, 50 yards. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but for a guy that you can grab as a flex in a PPR league, the fact that he got 9 targets while only seeing the field 59% of the time in terms of a snap rate, there's something there. The usage has gone up to 2 straight weeks now. We've seen him, 3 straight weeks now. We've seen 47% or better on the snap rate, 50% or better in 2 of those weeks for Atwell. And the slot usage has gone up too. We've seen 56.7% last week and 58.3% this week. So he's being utilized as the slot receiver on a team that's often going to be playing from behind. I think that's kind of the big deal here. That's kind of important to remember with the Rams. It's a team that's not very good right now. And if Mayfield continues to start, or if we get Stafford returns, which let's see his status. Stafford likes to utilize the slot receiver. We know at least the way he utilized. Oh wait, I forgot. Yeah, we're talking about spinal cord contusion. Yeah, season ending. That was the indication. I knew there was something there. That's why I was like, that's why they went and got Baker. So yeah, Baker, disregard Stafford obviously, but that's all we have is 1 game sample with him. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of look at Atwell. I think Atwell is the interesting guy here. Obviously, if you have Skowronek available in your leagues, he would be the top guy here. Jefferson and then Atwell, probably in that order, just because of how we saw Van Jefferson utilized this past week. So I don't want to. The snap share is there, but the usage wasn't. And Mayfield, we only have 1 week to go off of with him. We'll see what he does. A week with the book. A week with learning the offense should help him. Going over to the Jets and Bills game, the main takeaway here was the rushing side. Let's go to the rushing side here for the Jets. And we'll actually talk about the Bills too, because we saw some increased usage with certain players last week there. But this week, we saw a snap rate. We saw Michael Carter out-snap Bam Knight. But outside of targets, where Michael Carter got 6 to Bam Knight's 2, we saw the touches go in favor of Bam Knight. Pulling up the stats here. It's the way this site works here. It was the fact that we saw, 17 rushes for Knight, 5 for Michael Carter. That's kind of what you have to expect here. I'm going to look up third down usage and red zone usage here, see who stands out there. But Bam Knight was the guy that, although had less snaps, did garner more touches. And yes, you can see the reason why Michael Carter probably had more receiving yards and more targets was because he was utilized heavier on third downs. We're talking a 84.6% snap rate, 76.5% snap rate to Bam Knight's 11.8%. This is on third downs. And let's look at red zone while we're at it, shall we? See if there was we take anything away from today's red zone usage. But again, small sample. We saw Michael Carter get utilized more in the red zone, but barely 60% to 40% over Bam Knight. So Bam Knight's getting enough red zone utilization to matter. Plus, he got the rushing touchdown. So it goes to show you that Carter is more of the passing downs guy. James Robinson was a healthy scratch. Bam Knight should be the guy you're utilizing on this team in terms of fantasy, especially with running backs kind of getting nicked up and injured. And we'll get to a few of those later on as well. Obviously, I have to find my groove here. Haven't done live stream in a while. I apologize. And football is another one I haven't live streamed, I don't think ever, actually. So I apologize if it's a little choppy, a little sketchy at first. And I almost skipped over the Bills. Go figure. Let's see. The Bills box score, rushing. So this is where I wanted to talk about with the Bills, because we saw just a week ago, we saw James Cook kind of take a step forward just to take a step back again. I mean, he's still getting he got 40.7% of the snaps this week. Devin Singletary got 50%. And Cook as a whole, I'm going to look up his week by week, because that's where I'm interested to see how it's trending for him. Either way, we know it's kind of like fool's gold in this offense. The running backs here consistently seem to be just, it's like it's an offense to wish on, it's an offense to dream on in terms of what you can expect here. But the last 2 weeks, that's the thing. We saw 11 carries in week 11, 14 carries in week 13, and this is for James Cook. So we thought he's obviously trending 2 out of 3 weeks, 10 plus carries, and then he only gets 4 last week. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like pick your poison here. It's just not going in his favor. We saw obviously Allen lead the way this week, and then we saw Singletary double the amount of carries Cook got, 8-4. I mean, it's kind of frustrating. There's nothing. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Is as Cook is more of a plug and play for desperate. Singletary as well. These are guys that if you got hit by injuries right before the playoffs here, and you need someone to fill the spot, like Kenneth Walker. We'll talk about that situation later, a little more in depth in terms of those running backs. But Walker isn't expected, or not, that's not like expected, but it's too early to tell if he'll be ready. So if he is ready, is he limited? Is he on a snap count? There's a lot of questions with that situation. So this is where James Cook and Singletary could be someone to plug in if you don't have DJ Dallas or others in that backfield who could be ready this week. So I'm not all that intrigued by that offense or that situation. Now we can look at the something I want to look at here with the Browns-Bengals game. I want to look at the Browns as a whole, actually, over the last 2 weeks, because now that they have Deshaun Watson back, who looks like he's missed football for the last, he looks like someone who hasn't played the last 2 years. So Donovan Peoples-Jones stands out here, obviously. But was that because Amari Cooper was not fully healthy? I know he came in a little nicked up this week, but he played. So, but Peoples-Jones, I'm trying to look up the last 2 weeks here. And again, this is why you're seeing me do this live on the go. Week range 13, 14. And receiving. This is taking longer than I expected to load. So over the last 2 weeks, you have Donovan Peoples-Jones leading this team in receptions, 11. Second in the team targets to Mark Cooper, but obviously there's a connection there with Jones because he's able to make more of those targets work into receptions, but also more, like almost twice the amount of receiving yards for DPJ over Cooper. So Amari Cooper, although still is one of the top 2 receivers on this team, it could be Donovan Peoples-Jones who's taking over the lead in this backfield. Let's look at some more advanced stats here in terms of snap rate and target share, and we even look at red zone stuff. I know they've had some red zone stuff yesterday. So you're seeing, where is it? Oh my goodness. So in terms of just routes run, Donovan Peoples-Jones has also led the way there. Target per route run, they are almost even, with Amari Cooper slightly getting the edge there. And air yards, air yards are both over 140, but Donovan Peoples-Jones actually is over 200 air yards. And then you have Amari Cooper 147. So Jones is getting those deep passes. It's just interesting to see. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones becomes a flex-worthy option moving forward, no matter the format. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with this specific discussion here. Now, the Bengals are a mess offensively. They have Boyd, who might be missing a week or two with the injury. They have Higgins, who left early. So I'm not sure how to feel. I feel pretty bad for the Bengals. Obviously, Jamar Chase, he's the guy here. And then other than that, Trenton Irwin. I mean, Trent Taylor. These are the guys that led the way in snap count outside of Boyd, Chase, Higgins. Obviously, not he's dealing with the hamstring. So it's quite the receiving core here. Wouldn't even bother with it. There's better options. Jamar Chase, obviously, fire him up. Maybe Pirine gets a little sneaky there with the maybe Pirine gets a little sneaky in terms of PPR upside as a reserve running back, considering he's considering the lack of options right now with the injuries, unless Higgins is able to return and all that. But yeah, I'm not I wouldn't get my hopes up there. Next game, Texans Cowboys. This one was also interesting because you had Nico Collins out, you had Brandon Cooks out. So in turn, and again, the Dallas secondary is kind of a mess. They lost their safety yesterday during warmups. So looking at the Texans offense as a whole, you have the receptions. You have Chris Moore, who stood out with what was it, 50? He had a ton of work. Hold on here, it's loading the weirdest thing here. But you had Phillip, Dorsett, and Chris Moore leading the way in snap share, 81.3% for Dorsett, 79.7% for Chris Moore. And then looking up the stats here, 11 targets for Chris Moore, though, was the difference maker. He by far commanded the largest target share, the air yards. He had it all going for him. And that might just be the case. He's kind of an intriguing in case of, if you're desperate, in case of emergency, break glass, because there's a chance that you have Collins out again, you have Cooks out again, Chris Moore, just because he got that usage and utilization that you want out of a player on a team that's going to be chasing points the rest of the way, on a team that's always going to have garbage time. Why not give Chris Moore a look? Again, this goes back to these deeper leagues. Like Chris Moore would be in the conversation with Tutu Atwell, excuse me. So Chris Moore, Atwell, these are guys that in your deeper formats, if they're available, you might want to prioritize, because these are the guys that are probably going to be getting some looks moving down the stretch here into the playoffs. And you know how fantasy football is. Fantasy football is often chaotic, to say the least. So those types of names shouldn't be a surprise. Moving on to this is the one that upset me the most. DeAndre Swift, what happened? Like, I don't understand. We all got duped here. The Lions did what the Lions do. I mean, I thought they were finally giving Swift that larger role, and what'd they do? Nope. They went with a 3-man backfield. Justin Jackson getting 30%, DeAndre Swift getting 33%, and Jamal Williams getting 37%. And this is your offensive snap percentage. Jamal Williams outrushed all of them 16-6 to 4. The fact that Justin Jackson even got close to as many rushes as DeAndre Swift speaks volumes to what to expect from this offense. I really did think we were going to see Swift get a handle of this offense, really take off, and instead he took a step back. He was able to get 4 targets, which by far led the backfield. So he is still the passing down guy. And maybe because, they had a lead this whole game, maybe they just didn't have to lean on him to run more. But I don't think they want to use him to run more. They want to utilize him for his pass catching ability and his difference making ability out of the backfield, it seems like. So those added rush totals we saw in week 13 might have been fool's gold. And I'm sorry. I was really in on it. I really thought he was going to make it work. So that bums me out a little bit. In terms of the Vikings, what's there to say there? It's kind of the same old, same old. You have Dalvin Cook just doing his thing. You have Justin Jefferson just doing his thing. Cook wasn't necessarily great by any means, but he got the work. 15 rushes to just 2 from Madison. So there's nothing to really there. I mean, like it or not, he's the guy. I mean, even if he's not great every game, he's the guy. So at least you have that going for him. Next game was the Giants and Eagles, and the Eagles are going to eagle. No point there. Richie James was very intriguing. The issue is he left with what looked like a concussion at the end of the game, but we saw Richie James kind of get back on track. He was showing these kind of flashes right before a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if the concussions is going to be holding back, but he again goes into that grab them in deeper formats type of thing because he's getting more looks. I mean, this is the third straight week where we've seen him. 2 out of the last 3 weeks, we saw Richie James get at least 20% of the team target share, 28.1% last week, and at least 5 receptions those 2 weeks as well. So there's PPR value there. And we saw the snap rate. The big thing was the snap rate this week was 91.9%. So if he's healthy, he might just be that guy worth taking a shot on for this team. But again, left late in the game with a concussion. Not sure if he's going to play this week. Just got to keep an eye on it. In terms of the other team here, it's loading. Sorry. Again, this is me doing it live. Oh yeah, I already talked about the Eagles. We can move on to the Steelers and Ravens. And this one was just, I was surprised to see Dobbins kind of come in and do what we've been hoping for him to do all season long, but in week 14. And we saw flashes of it earlier in the year when he was healthy. Dobbins came in and pretty much split the carries 15-13 with Gus Edwards. Don't even know where Henry came from. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins pretty much split the carries. Kenyon Drake, non-factor. Huntley rushed a little bit, but then left injured. It's Dobbins' backfield, I would like to say. Let's look at again, third down usage and red zone usage. So third down, we saw, let's see who got the snap share for that. That's really what I'm interested in, is the snap share for the for third downs, because if Dobbins can carve out a role in third downs, that just adds to his potential for PPR formats, as he should for PPR leagues. But third downs, we saw, looks like Patrick Ricard. Dobbins did actually lead the way amongst running backs, getting 54.5% of the third down snap rate. And how about red zone? Let's see what he did on the red zone snap rate for Dobbins as well. It's loading. Sorry. Dobbins on the third down, on the red zone snap rate, 40%. Now, only 3 snaps, so take it for what it's worth. But he led the way, or at least was tied for the lead with Kenyon Drake in the red zone. So we're looking at a guy who just returned from injury, looks healthy, getting majority of the touches, getting majority of the third down work, and at least tied for the majority of the red zone work. Dobbins is a start. He's probably a top 24 running back rest of the way. Like Dobbins over Swift at this point. If this is, I'm afraid to be fooled again though, because this could be an indication of what to expect, or it could be a Swift 2.0. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Running back is getting thin entering playoffs. That is what it is. Dobbins though, all arrows pointing up here. Steelers, Najee Harris continues to kind of have this second half bounce back. It's not always like the best looking stat line, but he's getting the work. It's that simple. Jaylen Warren, although we saw him trending up in usage, hasn't really been doing much. So it's really been Najee Harris's show. It's that simple. Like I'm trying to figure out a way to try to see if there's anything else here, but other than like I said, other than Harris, who didn't even look great with his touches, he's getting them 14 touches total compared to a combined 7 from the other 2 running backs. So yeah, it really is that simple. You follow the playing time, you follow the touches. Fantasy football, sometimes just keeping it that simple is the way to go. Follow the production. Deontay Johnson continues to lead the way with his team in terms of targets and receptions. 6 receptions, 82 yards. Pat Freiermuth continues to be relevant in terms of a tight end. 6 targets, 3 receptions, and a touchdown. Nothing really to take away from here. On to the next game, shall we? Jags, Titans. This one was intriguing because we saw Evan Ingram kind of just take over, but he exploited a defense known to be exploited. The thing was Zay Jones bounced back. We saw the big target rates. We saw the receptions. Zay Jones had 7 targets, 5 in the first half of last week. And other than last week, the dude's been a rock star. And I don't know why we should be starting again another guy that's in the flex conversation the rest of the way. Arguably, wide receiver 2, like in that fringe top 24 option. I don't think he's gonna be that good. I want to believe that he's just been so heavily utilized, and this offense is always another team playing from behind. And Zay Jones, again, outside of 1 week where he was fine, he's had 10 targets or more 3 out of the last 4 weeks. He's had 8 receptions or more 3 out of the last 4 weeks. You see the trend here. He is going up in usage. Minus 1 week where we saw the offense as a whole just have a hard time. Lawrence went down with injury at halftime, came back, and I think Zay Jones is here to stay and has that PPR potential again. Wide receiver 2 upside if needed, but definitely a safe flex, especially in PPR leagues. The Chiefs and Broncos, we saw Russell cook. I was so shocked. Russ cooked and then went down with a concussion. So we'll see if he plays this week. But we saw Juju bounce back. We saw, wow, his name's not popping up. Pacheco. We saw Isiah Pacheco continue his fantasy goodness in terms of dominating those early rounds rushing attempts. But we also saw McKinnon doing kind of what we did last year. That late season upside of being that PPR back. He's playing the passing downs. He's getting the passing work. You got to like that for him. And this is also while he's getting some rushes. It's not like he's not getting any rushes. He actually had 10 to 13 for Pacheco. So although you're getting, I'm looking at the rushing snaps. I apologize. He had 6 to Pacheco's 13. So although you're still getting Pacheco with majority of the rushing down work and better yardage and all that, you do have McKinnon factoring in now. It's just McKinnon has that PPR potential. So if you're looking for a fill in the blank here, again, you're dealing with injuries at running back. McKinnon is a viable option, especially given the fact that he can make plays out of nothing. We saw him make that play with Mahomes yesterday, that little flick play where he took it to the house. That's the type of stuff that you can't exactly build into your projections for a player, but McKinnon has the potential to take one of those to the house any given week, considering Mahomes' playmaking ability. And as long as McKinnon remains looking for it. Let's look at the third down work, though. Because, again, I like to just look at these third down snap rates and the red zone snap rates, and just to make sure that McKinnon is actually that guy. And, yes, McKinnon got 91% of the third down snap rates. And if you look at the red zone, it's probably going to be a similar story where McKinnon probably got majority of the looks there. McKinnon did get 80% of the snaps in the red zone to 20% for Pacheco. So Pacheco does get some receptions, gets most of the between the 20 to 20, touches, but then inside the 20, third downs, McKinnon's the guy. And that is a high value asset to have on an offense like this. The Broncos, Marlon Mack was intriguing. He actually tied for red zone touches. Oh, and rates. He had 50% snap rate in the red zone. Let's go look at his third down work. And I look for these third down work type things. I look for red zone. I think that's very high value touches, especially in PPR formats. If you're not in a PPR format, not as valuable to you. Latavius Murray led the way there by a solid margin, 52.9% of the third down snaps. But Marlon Mack, nearly 30%, 29.4% third down rate. So again, you have a guy that's at least factoring into the passing downs. And then overall, obviously, we'll look at the rates as a whole. And you saw Murray lead the way. Marlon Mack getting 31.9%, but Mack becomes an interesting waiver wire guy just for depth purposes. He was utilized while in the game, so maybe they will try to do that more often. But it's not something you can guarantee, unfortunately. But with that being said, one injury to Murray. This is the time of the year where you're supposed to be having handcuffs anyway. I think Mack is obviously the next man up here, and in the playoffs, if there's an injury, you have the guy you're beating the waiver wire here. You're stashing handcuffs. You're stashing other players that block other people from being able to make these moves to block you from winning or to be able to play against you in the playoffs. So we got to make these moves here. Mack is a guy you grab to stash at the very least. Next game, We have 3 more here. Panthers, Seahawks. That's such an ugly game. The only thing worth really mentioning here is DJ Moore. He's dealing with I think it was a foot injury. It came out this morning. He's getting tests. So I guess we're gonna look at the receiving here. I think Shenault is the guy that stood out when I looked, and that is, let's see the passing down work here for the Panthers. If it'll load, it's taking a while. This I've been dealing with. This internet isn't usually an issue. So you had Shenault who got 4 targets while only running 8 routes. How mind-blowing is that, right? He hit on 8, he only ran 8 routes and he had 4 targets. He was targeted on 50% of the routes he ran. But that's going to go up, obviously, with more out. But the main guy here in terms of opportunity is probably Terrace Marshall, because Marshall had the second most routes run on this team. So he should gain the most in terms of potential just by having one less guy blocking his way and paired with the playing time going. But you got to think Shenault probably steps into a bit larger role. And if Chenault's the underneath type of guy, Chenault's the guy that is that security blanket. And we know Sam Darnold isn't throwing down the field too much. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a little bit of Ian Thomas step up as the tight end here, and then Laviska Shenault. But it's probably a situation I'm avoiding altogether. The fact that DJ Moore can't get going on this team, the fact that DJ Moore he's an elite talent, but he's just dead to rights right now in this offense. Why would you trust anybody else just because of an increased opportunity? It's only the deepest of formats. We're talking Laviska Shenault here and Terrace Marshall, again, assuming Terrace Marshall isn't already drafted. Isn't already rostered in those deeper formats. And the Seahawks, what's there to say there? I mean, Marquise Goodwin was interesting. I mean, he ran 33 routes yesterday, 6 targets, 5 receptions. We know the upside there because he's a deep ball type of guy. This team had to throw a lot yesterday. I know Metcalf has kind of been banged up, so that could lead to an interesting situation there. Let's see if Metcalf had some lingering issues. I missed that. No, nothing I can see. He's just dealing with the hip. So Marquise Goodwin's the number 3 on this team, but while being number 3, we saw him have decent utilization, led the team in receiving yards yesterday. There's always that boom potential, I guess, but it's just that's what it is. It's boom bust. It's obviously Lockett, Metcalf, and that's pretty much it here in terms of interest for me, I should say. 2 more games. Let's get to we can skip right through this one. Pretty much Buccaneers 49ers. We know the big news here. Deebo Samuel out 4 to 6 weeks, high ankle sprain. It looked worse. It looked like a knee, but the way apparently it's a high ankle sprain. He's done for the year, I would say all but. I mean, if you have an IR spot, you stash him, but realistically, he's probably droppable, which blows my mind. Didn't think I'd be saying those words this late in the year, but here we are. We have Brandon Aiyuk, the obvious next guy up, but this team is obviously trying to move the ball through the ground. You had McCaffrey do his thing, Jordan Mason. Mason's another guy above Marlon Mack, obviously, but he's a guy you must roster. If CMC gets hurt at all, he would be a league winner off the waiver wire. So get past the waiver wire or get ahead of it. Make sure he's on your bench. He's a top target guy. He's a top guy to get if you are in a position where you don't need production because you have a deep team entering the playoffs, which most of us should if you're entering the playoffs. And Mason's a guy that you want on your bench just in case. He's the ultimate. He could be a league winner because if CMC goes down or misses a week just because they want to rest him, whatever it might be, Mason should get that role, and that's a very valuable role as we've seen time and time again in this offense. And then the Dolphins and Chargers. Dolphins look terrible. We saw Jeff Wilson leave with injury, so that opens it up for Raheem Mostert, who got the work in his absence. And well, that's all you should say. That's all to say there. It's Raheem Mostert. He becomes a top target. He becomes above these other names we mentioned as someone who should be available and would fall right into a role. It's that simple here with Miami. We have to watch Tyreek Hill, see how he progresses, but the fact that he played even while after getting hurt, fine. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The Chargers, Mike Williams stayed healthy and caught a touchdown and looked like himself. So nothing really there. Just if anything, Josh Palmer just becomes a stash or a drop in a pinch if you need to, because we see Mike Williams in and out. It feels like every week. So I would just I would probably hold on to him if I could, but I understand dropping him. He's obviously a drop candidate at this point. Again, roster crunches. You got to get guys on your bench that you think are going to pop, that you could beat the waiver wire for, and although Palmer would be a guy with injury to be there because we've seen how good he could be when utilized. I just don't know. I just don't know if we should bank on that injury. I feel like I think where I'm getting at with this is I'd rather have that that running back, the Jordan Mason types over a Palmer type. And like I said, Tyreek Hill, second in the team in routes, ran last night, and this is while dealing with. Like, I don't think he was out that long. I just know he got a little dinged up and stayed in the game, or at least went back, returned quickly to the game. I'm looking up the news right now on him. Oh, it's illness. No, I swear I saw something. It was an ankle. I thought it was an ankle or something at one point, and then came back in. But maybe I misread that this morning. Either way, he's fine. No injury news on him at all. That was every game. That was every player I could think of. If I missed anything, comment it below. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to add timestamps, and I'm going to make this I'll put this on a podcast feed because I think I have a podcast feed sitting around that I could throw this on. So I appreciate all those who came and check this out. Like I said, it was a little choppy. I have to get back into the live streaming mentality. I haven't done that in a while, so appreciate the patience. But this was a way for me to get everything covered that I wanted to going into this week. I'm probably I'll make another video or so just around some of these names just to highlight them. But I'm also, like I said, timestamps will be in the bio. So appreciate you checking it out, and I'll be back next week with another live stream. At least I'm hoping to be. That's the goal here, 1 week. So appreciate you checking out the channel. Subscribe, like, comment, goes a long way. And until next time, we'll talk soon.